My name is Cassandra, and I'm 34 years old. I built a $70 million aviation empire, but my family thought I was just a trash-collecting flight attendant. When my brother Jason excluded me from his wedding reception, he told me this. Having a sister who's a garbage collector would embarrass our high-class guests. Just come to the ceremony and leave. What he didn't know was that every single luxury private jet his high-class guests flew in on was owned by me. And months later, at my own nationally televised luxury wedding, the entire truth was revealed. Before you see the incredible conclusion to this story of reversal, I have a question for you. If your family treated you as an embarrassment, how would you handle it? Let me know in the comments. And to see this shocking development through to the end, please hit the like button and subscribe to the channel. Before we dive into this incredible story, I want to ask you, have you ever been underestimated by the people closest to you? Drop a comment below and let me know how you handled it. And if you're ready to see how this story unfolds, smash that like button and hit subscribe for more stories of resilience and triumph. Drop a comment below and let me know how you handled it. And if you're ready to see how this story unfolds, smash that like button and hit subscribe for more stories of resilience and triumph. I grew up in a middle-class family in Chicago with my brother. Jason, 3 years older than me, was the golden child. He was athletic, academically excellent, and received all of our parents' attention and praise. Meanwhile, I was always the extra. When Jason got good grades on a math test, the family would go out for ice cream. When I brought home straight A's, I got a simple, well done, and that was it. In high school, Jason would forget to pick me up from school. Walking 2 miles home in the rain became a regular occurrence. Your brother is busy with college applications. Be patient, Cassandra, they'd say. When I was 15, a school trip to O'Hare International Airport sparked my fascination with the aviation industry. At dinner that evening, when I shared this excitement with my family, I'll never forget their reaction. Airplanes? You're not seriously thinking of making a living handing out peanuts and demonstrating seatbelts, are you? Jason's mockery was followed by my parents' awkward laughter. The conversation immediately shifted to his debate team victory. College was tough for me. While Jason had his Ivy League tuition paid for by our parents, I worked multiple jobs and scholarships to attend state school for aviation management. Every time I came home, I heard about how Jason is destined for greatness from my father. During my junior year, when I landed an internship at a major airline, I reported it at Thanksgiving dinner. My mother asked, "Does that mean you can get us cheap airline tickets?" Then Jason delivered the line that cut deep into my heart. "Are you still planning to become a sky waitress?" In that moment, I made a decision. I would never again share my successes with them. After graduation, I started as an operations assistant at a small regional airline. My office was a windowless room at Chicago Executive Airport with a metal folding desk. But I had a secret weapon. I was hungrier to learn than anyone else. I stayed until 3 a.m., learning aircraft maintenance from mechanics and weather patterns from pilots. 6 months later, the strict operations director Richard Harmon discovered my work. I had digitized the chaotic filing system and built a database to prevent scheduling errors. The next day, he promoted me to his assistant. "You have something the others don't, Andrews. You can see the big picture while understanding the details. That's a rare talent." 2 years later, when Richard had a heart attack, I took over the department. When he returned 3 months later, the department was running at peak efficiency. That's when I saw my future, not as a corporate employee, but as a founder. The opportunity came from a regular business client's complaint. There's a gap in the charter market. The big companies aren't flexible, and the small operators aren't reliable. If someone could combine the best of both, that someone was me. For a year, I lived a double life. Days at my regular job, Nights developing a business plan. Investor meetings were hell. Too young? Women can't handle this. Not enough experience. Rejection after rejection. Finally, venture capitalist Patricia Winters gave me a 3-hour evaluation. I see myself 20 years ago. I'll provide half the funding. You raise the rest and prove your concept. With Patricia's funding, I leased a used Cessna Citation Excel, 2 pilots, 1 mechanic, 1 flight attendant. Skyline Executive Aviation was born. The first 6 months were terrifying. One cancellation could have sunk us financially. I was dispatcher, accountant, marketer, and sometimes flight attendant all rolled into one. The turning point came when one of our clients, a tech CEO, referred his friend, a movie producer. His regular charter company had problems, and they desperately needed our services. Impressed by our service, he became a regular client and introduced us to entertainment industry powerhouses. After 1 year, 2 aircraft, double the staff after 2 years, 5 aircraft, operations at 3 airports. After 3 years, acquired a struggling charter company, expanded into New York market by my 32nd birthday. Skyline had become one of the industry's premier executive aviation services. 15 aircraft, over 100 employees, with celebrities and political figures as clients. I owned a penthouse in Chicago, vacation homes in Aspen and the Bahamas, and my personal net worth reached 8 figures. Ironically, many of the high society people Jason admired were my clients. They knew my name and respected my company. But my own brother didn't even understand what I did. A beautiful invitation arrived on a Tuesday morning. Wax seal, hand-drawn calligraphy. Jason was remarrying Elizabeth, a real estate heiress. The invitation was elegant. Ceremony at St. Patrick's Cathedral, followed by a reception at the Pierre Hotel. But the reception details weren't included. That evening, I called Jason. Cassandra, I'm busy preparing for the biggest day of my life. What's so urgent? Same condescending tone as always. Congratulations on the wedding. I just noticed the reception details weren't included. I could hear him shifting uncomfortably on the phone. About that. The reception is a very high-class event. Elizabeth's family invited senators, CEOs, even European royalty. It's a very exclusive gathering. And, he sighed, as if explaining to a child, frankly, Cassandra, it might be uncomfortable for you. What would Elizabeth's parents think if they knew my sister collects trash on airplanes? Those words hit me like a physical blow. I don't collect trash, Jason. I'm an airline executive. I struggled to keep my voice steady. He laughed condescendingly. Executive? Look, I know you're a flight attendant cleaning up after passengers. It's respectable work, but it doesn't fit the clientele at this wedding. You understand, right? You can come to the ceremony, but the reception is for a different class of people. I sat down, gripping the phone. For years, he had assumed I was a flight attendant. He had never seriously asked what I actually did. Jason, do you know what I actually do for work? I asked quietly. You've talked about airline work for years. Look, I have a meeting with Elizabeth and the florist in 20 minutes. Whether you come or not is up to you. I hung up without saying another word. My hands were shaking with a mixture of anger and sadness. Desperately, I called my parents. Mom, did you know Jason excluded me from the reception? Oh, Cassandra, don't take it personally. It's a very exclusive event. The governor might even attend. So you knew about excluding me and you're okay with it? Dad's voice joined the call. Your brother is marrying into an influential family. This wedding is important for his career. It's natural to care about appearances. Appearances? What about me embarrasses him? After uncomfortable silence, Mom spoke up. You know we support your work, honey. But these are sophisticated people with special expectations. If you had gone into a more professional field like we suggested, the implication was clear. They also saw me as something inferior, unworthy to sit with my brother's important wedding guests. I understand, I said with crystal clarity. Thank you for being honest. I won't attend the ceremony either. In fact, I think it's better if we have no relationship going forward. Don't be dramatic, Cassandra, Dad scolded. We're done. We have no relationship anymore, I declared and hung up. That night, I sat in my penthouse overlooking the Chicago skyline, the very home I could afford because of the career they dismissed. The pain was sharp but clear. For years, I had maintained connections with people who didn't see me, respect me, or even try to know me. That night, I made a life-changing decision. The next morning, I had my assistant send an email completely withdrawing from Jason's wedding. Then I changed my personal phone number, instructed staff to block all family contact, and began moving to a new address. It was time to embrace the success and happiness I had built alone. 6 months after cutting ties with my family, I met Thomas Harrington at an aviation industry conference in Geneva. He was the founder of a company leading the luxury private jet interior industry. Like me, Thomas had built his company from the ground up. We shared similar values about business ethics and philanthropy. That professional meeting became dinner, then regular video calls, weekend visits, and finally the realization that what we found was something far beyond a business partnership. When I finally told him about my family, he responded not with sympathy, but with pure indignation on my behalf. They have no idea what an extraordinary person they pushed away, he said, holding my hand across a New York dinner table. After 6 months of dating, when he proposed on a private beach in Maui with the Pacific sunset as backdrop, I said yes without hesitation. As wedding plans took shape, Thomas suggested an intimate gathering, but I had a different vision. I want to do something grand. Let's create something truly memorable. As plans became elaborate, one of my regular clients, a producer, suggested featuring our wedding in a documentary series about luxury events. Wedding planning became a major production. We secured the Crystal Ballroom at the historic Blackstone Hotel with stunning views of Lake Michigan. The guest list expanded beyond friends and colleagues to include influential figures from business, entertainment, and politics. A luxury travel magazine feature described our approaching wedding as Aviation Industry Wedding of the Year. Wedding week was a whirlwind of activity. Camera crews captured final preparations, the rehearsal dinner at a Michelin-starred restaurant, and our first meeting on the wedding day. The ceremony itself was elegant and personal. We wrote our own vows, speaking honestly about finding each other after each building separate paths to success. The reception was everything we had envisioned. Spectacular yet tasteful, impressive yet warm. The documentary crew captured everything, including congratulatory messages from clients who couldn't attend in person. 2 weeks after the ceremony, while Thomas and I were honeymooning in the Maldives, the documentary aired nationally on a lifestyle network. Only when we returned did I learn that the documentary had dropped a bomb on my estranged family. The first sign of change was 27 missed calls on my personal phone, a number I had never shared with my family. Voicemails from my parents, from Jason, from aunts, uncles, and cousins I hadn't spoken to in years. My first instinct was to ignore them all, but curiosity won, and I listened to one voicemail from my brother. Cassandra, it's Jason. I saw your wedding on TV last night. I had no idea. Those people, the Jets, call me. We need to talk. His voice sounded different, shocked, uncertain, maybe a little afraid. Another message from Dad. I saw your wedding special. It was beautiful, and your husband seems like a wonderful man. I didn't know your business was so successful. Please call. Mom's message was tearful, full of declarations of pride that now rang hollow. She called me her brilliant daughter, the same person who months ago was an embarrassing sister collecting trash on airplanes. More messages followed, relatives expressing amazement at how well I was doing, even an excited message from Elizabeth, my new sister-in-law I'd never met. Jason never mentioned his sister was such a powerhouse. Thomas found me in our home office, holding the phone with a thoughtful expression. Your family saw the wedding. I nodded. Suddenly, everyone wants to talk. They're clearly shocked. 10 days later, my assistant burst into my office during a meeting. Your family is in the lobby. All of them. I felt the blood drain from my face. All of them? Your parents, your brother, and his wife. They're demanding to see you. Tell security to keep them in the lobby. I'll be down in 10 minutes. In the marble-floored lobby of Skyline Executive Aviation Headquarters, I found them. Somehow they looked smaller. I approached them with measured steps, stopping at professional distance. This is unexpected, I said in a calm, controlled voice. Cassandra, Mom moved to hug me, but stopped when she saw my body language. You look wonderful. Thank you. May I ask why you came to my office unannounced? Jason stepped forward. Cassie, I saw your wedding documentary. Why didn't you ever tell us about all this? He gestured around at the gleaming lobby. A scale model of our flagship Gulfstream was proudly displayed in a glass case. Would it have mattered? I asked simply. Would it have changed how you treated me? His face reddened. Of course, if I had known you were so successful. That's exactly the problem, I interrupted. You're only valuing me now because of what I have, not who I am. The same person you excluded from a wedding reception as an embarrassment. Now I suddenly have worth because you saw my wealth on TV. Mom quietly began to cry. That's not fair, Cassandra. We always loved you. Love without respect isn't something I'm interested in, I replied firmly, but not unkindly. For years, you dismissed my career, my choices, my very identity. You never asked meaningful questions about my work or life. You were content believing I collected trash on planes. Meanwhile, I was building one of the country's most successful private aviation companies. We made mistakes, Dad admitted. I had never heard such words from him. We were wrong about you. We want to make it right. I looked at each of them in turn, seeing naked need in their eyes. Need for what exactly? Forgiveness? Connection? Or access to the world they glimpsed in that wedding documentary? I appreciate you coming here, I finally said, but I'm not ready to simply welcome you back into my life as if nothing happened. Any relationship we might have going forward needs to be built on new terms that I establish and you respect. Jason looked devastated. But we're family. Being family didn't stop you from saying I wasn't good enough for your complete wedding. I reminded him. It didn't stop years of dismissing my career. Family isn't just biological connection. It's a relationship that requires mutual respect. That's something we've never had. Elizabeth, who had been silent until now, spoke up. Many of our wedding guests flew in on your jets. The Prestons, the Whitfields, Senator Collins. They all mentioned you and your company at the reception with high praise. We had no idea. The irony was almost too perfect. The very people Jason was so worried about impressing had been my clients all along. I allowed myself a small smile, but didn't comment on this revelation. I have a meeting I need to return to, I said, checking my watch. I can't continue this conversation. Would you at least consider talking to us again? Mom pleaded. Maybe come to dinner? I paused, considering. Despite everything, these were the people who raised me. The wounds they inflicted were real, but so was the opportunity to perhaps build something healthier on my terms. I'll think about it, I conceded. But I need time and space. Please respect that by not showing up at my workplace again. If I'm ready to talk, I'll contact you. With that, I said goodbye and headed to the elevator, leaving them standing in the lobby with lost, anxious expressions. 3 weeks passed before I felt ready to meet with my family again. They had respected boundaries, limiting themselves to occasional text messages expressing their desire to reconnect without pressuring me. I invited them to dinner at a private dining room in one of Chicago's finest restaurants. Neutral ground seemed appropriate. "Thank you for agreeing to meet with us," Mom began. "I've missed you terribly." "Really?" I asked, not unkindly but directly. "What did you miss about me, Mom?" Because in the years before I cut contact, we rarely had conversations beyond surface pleasantries. Jason shifted uncomfortably in his seat. "Look, Cassie, we all made mistakes." I was jealous. I'll admit it. For years, I was the golden child, the successful one. Then suddenly you're on TV with celebrities, running a company worth millions. I realized I'd been a complete fool. His honesty surprised me. "What were you jealous of?" "You had everything: praise, support, approval. Everything I would have given anything for." "I had pressure," he counted. "Constant pressure to be perfect, to achieve, to represent the family. You had freedom. And look what you did with it." I considered his words. There was truth there. "That still doesn't explain why you deliberately excluded me from your wedding reception." "I was insecure," he said, looking ashamed. "I wanted to impress Elizabeth's family with my connections, my status. And I thought, honestly, I thought you were a flight attendant, Cassie. But the irony is," I continued, "I was flying many of your distinguished guests on private jets. That governor you were so eager to impress? He's been my client for 3 years." The shock on their faces would have been comical in different circumstances. "Why didn't you ever tell us?" Dad asked. "I tried at first. I mentioned achievements, new clients, company expansions. You would nod politely to my achievements. Then you'd immediately turn the conversation to Jason's latest courtroom victory or partnership prospects. Eventually, I stopped trying." "I failed you," Mom admitted. "As a mother, I should have seen you, really seen you. Instead, I made assumptions and never looked deeper." "Yes, you failed me," I agreed quietly. "All of you." And it hurt. It still hurts. But in some ways, I also need to be grateful. They looked confused. Being overlooked made me self-reliant. Being underestimated gave me determination to prove my worth, even if only to myself. Your indifference forced me to find validation in my own achievements rather than your approval. So while I wish things had been different, I recognize that adversity helped shape who I am today. We spent the rest of dinner beginning the awkward but necessary process of getting to know each other as adults. It was perhaps the first time we had ever done so. In the months that followed, they made consistent efforts. They respected boundaries and showed genuine interest in my life and work. Dad asked for a tour of headquarters, and when he began to understand the scale of what I had built, I saw a real pride in his eyes. Mom and I started weekly lunches, slowly rebuilding a relationship that had never really existed. 6 months after the wedding, Thomas and I invited the family to our home overlooking the Chicago skyline to make an announcement. "We're expecting a baby," I shared. The joy on their faces seemed genuine, unmarred by the old patterns of favoritism. A year later, Thomas and I welcomed our daughter, Lily Patricia, named after my grandmother and the first investor who believed in me. Holding her in my arms, watching her tiny fingers wrap around mine, I quietly promised that her worth would never be tied to achievements or status, but to the simple fact of her existence. Our home became a place of new beginnings. My parents visited regularly, settling into their roles as grandparents. The once pompous father now sits on the floor building block towers with Lily, his former aloof dignity replaced by genuine affection. Jason and Elizabeth also became fixtures in our lives, joining Sunday dinners and holiday celebrations. The competitive dynamic that had defined our sibling relationship for decades gradually shifted to mutual respect, and sometimes collaboration when his legal expertise proved valuable in my business ventures. 6 months after Lily's first birthday, we hosted a garden party at our home celebrating the official launch of the Andrews Foundation, named after my maiden name. The foundation focused on educational opportunities and mentorship for young women interested in aviation, engineering, and business leadership, fields where women are still disproportionately underrepresented. I want to be for these girls what Richard was for me, I explained to Thomas as we finalized the foundation structure. Someone who sees their potential and gives them a chance to prove themselves. That evening, after the guests had left and Lily was asleep, Thomas and I sat on the terrace with wine, watching the city lights twinkle below. "What are you thinking about?" he said, using the phrase that had become traditional between us. "I was thinking about worth," I replied. "For so long, I thought I needed to prove my value to my family, to the world, maybe even to myself. Building the company became this validation project. If I was successful enough, impressive enough, maybe they'd finally see me." Thomas listened carefully, but somewhere along the way, I realized external validation is never enough. It's like trying to fill a bucket with a hole in the bottom. Real security comes from knowing your own worth independent of achievements or others' opinions. "And do you know that worth now?" he asked gently. I smiled, feeling the truth of my answer. "I do. It has nothing to do with jets or wealth or status. It's about integrity, compassion, willingness to build rather than destroy. It's about loving well and being loved well. Everything else is just decoration." Thomas raised his glass to knowing your worth and helping others discover theirs. And to that, I added, thinking of the foundation scholars, Lily, and all the people we might touch in large and small ways. Have you ever been overlooked or underestimated by people close to you? How did you respond? Did you try to prove yourself, or did you find validation from within? Share your story in the comments below. If this resonated with you, please hit that like button and subscribe for more stories of resilience and self-discovery. Remember, your worth is never determined by others' recognition. Only you can define what makes you valuable. Thank you for listening, and may you have the courage to live authentically, no matter who fails to see your light. Remember, your worth is never determined by others' recognition. Only you can define what makes you valuable. Thank you for listening, and may you have the courage to live authentically, no matter who fails to see your light.